Welcome to a Planet Doug behind the scenes story time experimental video. It's experimental because I've never really done videos like this before. What I mean is I want to tell the story of the last couple of weeks of my life all in one go, because I fall behind with regular videos. Like when I'm taking video of my day, of my actual activities, those videos take a long time to edit and post, and I fall behind. And I feel like I want to tell a more up-to-date story, and I like just talking to the camera. So what I want to do is go all the way back in time to when I left from Bangkok and got on the train to come down here to Penang. I haven't posted the actual video of those events yet, so my idea is to tell the story, and just telling the story like this goes much faster. Anyway, I'm heading out for dinner right now, and I'm heading to Yummy Cottage, which is a food court just down the street from my Airbnb. And I'm hoping my favorite buffet with eggplant is going to be open and operational. We're going to find out in a minute. Oh, they're just getting set up now, so I got here just in time. I guess I have to just wait a few minutes. Look at that, I'd never seen them do this before. But they have all the dishes here coming out from the kitchen, each one covered with saran wrap, and they're putting them out. And we humans, hungry vultures, we're just waiting for them to uncover the food so we can get it. And we'll see, yeah, there's my, such a beautiful sight. It really is, all that amazing food. How they can make so many dishes like this is just beyond me. I mean, I couldn't make one of them. I'd be exhausted just trying to cook one of these dishes, and they make dozens of them. And here's my dish right here. This is what I come back for, the eggplant. I love eggplant so much. So I think I'm going to get eggplant, some sort of sweet and sour chicken, and some vegetables. And they often have kind of a custard pudding of some kind. Oh, there it is there. Yeah, there's the custard right there, which I really, really like. So I'll probably have that as well. Got my dinner. It's out of frame, but there it is. Eggplant, broccoli, sweet and sour chicken, and rice. That was 7 ringgit, and milk tea. Plus my table. They come as a combination. You have to pay for the table, and you pay for the table by buying a drink. So it's 2 ringgit for that, and for the privilege of sitting at a table. Man, it's going to be good. Yeah, the owner here is a very friendly guy, and I have a chat with him every time I come here. So, like I said, I was going to talk about my trip here, and I wanted to do it kind of in short form, not in a whole lot of detail. We'll see whether I stick to that plan or not. But if you've been following my story on the main channel, you know that I was busy in Maysot buying train tickets and bus tickets to get here to Penang, and I was going to stop off here on my way to Kuala Lumpur. And I got a train ticket for a night train out of Bangkok, left at 3:10 in the afternoon. And I planned all this out pretty carefully in advance, and I even went to the train station while I was in Bangkok to confirm my ticket and make sure I knew where the train station was and how to get there. I like to do this sort of pre-planning, make sure everything goes smoothly. And yeah, the train left 3:10 in the afternoon. I went down to the train station. I checked out of my hotel at noon, of course, checkout time, and slowly made my way down there. I still had a lot of stuff to carry, very heavy backpack, embarrassingly heavy, because I'm carrying a lot of household goods that I packed up from Maysot. I figured I owned it, I might as well just bring it with me just for that one trip. if you're backpacking around and traveling, you wouldn't carry that much stuff, but I was carrying a lot. And I have some duplicate camera gear as well that I hope to consolidate while I'm in Kuala Lumpur and kind of make sense of my life in general while I'm there. So good. I have to give my milk tea a long time to cool down because it's usually hot. They actually have hot tea and then they pour it over top of ice. It takes a while for the ice to really cool it down to the level that this Canadian needs. So I did all this pre-planning and I thought I was so organized for the train station. I get there, I know where the platform is, I find out when the train is boarding, because my idea is I don't want to board an 18-hour, I don't want to board a train for an 18-hour trip, starting the trip hot, sweaty, and uncomfortable. I want to get on the train feeling cool and fresh and relaxed and full of energy. So what I did, I got to the train station early. I went up to this place called Black Canyon, up on the second floor of the Bangkok train station. Amazing train station, by the way, vintage style, classic place. I love it there. Got a cold drink. I'm hanging out at Black Canyon, waiting for just before the official boarding time to get on my air-conditioned train. Then just a few minutes before boarding, I went into the bathroom in the train station, and I've always got a little hand towel with me. So I'm in the bathroom, and I kind of stripped down as much as is polite in polite society, and I took my hand towel and I soaked it in the sink and just wiped myself completely down. So I was basically taking a shower, a towel shower in the bathroom, just got completely clean, all fresh, just tons and tons of water, just dumping it over my head, rubbing down my chest and back and arms and legs, just getting nice and clean. And when I was feeling perfect, then I shouldered my backpack, went out to the train platform, fully expecting my train to be there waiting for me, and I could just, waltz onto the train, air-conditioned glory, find my seat, and then just settle in for this amazing ride. Based on the tone of my voice, I'm sure you can guess it didn't work out that way at all. And the issue, as it turned out, was that the train, for whatever reason, was running late. And there were some announcements being made. I couldn't make them out, but it seemed to be about train number 45, which is my train. And if they're making live announcements about your train, you know it's not good news. It's not like there's going to be an announcement like, good news, travelers. Your train is arriving with complimentary champagne at every bench, or good news, travelers. Your train travels twice as fast as other trains. You'll get to your destination in half the time. No. If there's an announcement, it means your train is running late, it broke down, it's been canceled, something. So there was no train on the platform when I went out there, and I just, along with the hundreds of other people waiting for the train, I assume hundreds, it was a big train, we had no choice but basically to stand on the platform and wait for this train, not even knowing how long we were going to have to wait. It was a real guessing game. I was comparing notes with other foreigners on the platform, like, do you know what's going on? No. Do you know what's going on? No. Like, do you know how long the train will be? No. And we're all looking up the train platform, and we occasionally see a train or a piece of a train kind of move into view and go up and down this track and that track. And every time we see movement, we think, that's our train. Yes, it's coming. But then it goes off on a different track and does not come to us. And it ended up taking an hour and a half before the train showed up. So the train was running an hour and a half late at that point. And spoiler alert, along the way, it picked up another hour and a half delay So as it was moving along, it was basically running 3 hours behind schedule, which may play into my story later on if I remember to talk about it. So even though I'd gotten on the platform cool and fresh and clean and dry and just ready to go, I had to sit there in this baking hot sun for an hour and a half, you know, with all my bags and my heavy bag, backpack, all that stuff, waiting an hour and a half. And by the time the train finally did show up, I was right back to sweaty mess, which I almost always am, you know, here in this part of the world. So I tried so hard, but my plans didn't quite work out, and I boarded the train just dripping in sweat. My shirt was soaked through on the back, on the shoulders. My pants, you know, where the belt hugs around my waist, soaked through with sweat. I was a wreck before the train ride even began. I'll jump to the end and tell you that as train rides go, this night train was one of the best experiences of my life. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was just a glorious ride. I felt so good the entire time. And then when I arrived at the border with Malaysia, getting off the train, I felt great. I felt rested. I felt happy. Everything was great. I had a sleeping berth. I managed to get a lot of sleep during the night, which is very rare for me. Woke up feeling good. Yeah, really good train trip. But I do live on Planet Doug, and on Planet Doug, little things can be a little bit tricky. And things were tricky from the minute I boarded the train. I mean, it was already running an hour and a half late, as I said. My careful plan to be fresh and clean didn't work out. And then I get on the train, and I'm showing people my ticket. People are asking for my ticket, and they see that I'm in berth 10. So, okay, berth 10, berth 10. Then the guy says, follow me, and I follow him, and he brings me to this set of 2 benches that are facing each other. So there's a sort of a number 9 on this side facing one way, and number 10 on this side. Well, I was very happy to see that I had number 10, because number 10 was facing forward. So when I'm sitting in that seat, I would be facing in the direction of travel. Had I been in number 9, I would have been moving backwards. And I think everybody prefers to be moving forwards if they can. And there was a young man sitting in number 9. But no, that's not true, because there wasn't a guy waiting to sit in number 9. But both 9 and 10 was filled with what looked like junk. There were like bags everywhere. There was clothing hanging on hooks everywhere, like shopping bags, like plastic bags from grocery stores filled with stuff hanging on hooks. Like someone was living in that berth. It's like, oh, okay. And it turns out it was the guy who brought us there. It was sort of like the train employees, like the train staff. If a seat happens to be open, there's no passengers, they will just sort of camp there for the duration. And then when someone shows up with a ticket for that seat, then they move out and find somewhere else to camp. So anyway, this guy who brought me to berth number 10, he was like, okay, this is your seat, you know, wait. And he started grabbing all that stuff, picking it up and sort of throwing it onto some seats on the other side. All that, you know, it was like a train station hat, some sort of a straw hat, I think, a bunch of bags. And he's moving all this stuff to the other seat. And then when it was clear, we were allowed to sit down. The young guy sat down, and he sat near the aisle. Everything seemed kind of okay. But because the benches are facing each other, I can't really sit opposite him. Our knees will hit, you know? So I moved as far to the right as I can against the window, but then my head hit the ceiling. It was like I was crouched over, like literally as low as I could go. I had to turn into a little hobbit, like a U shape, in order to slide into my seat, because the ceiling basically came down to shoulder height. It was like, what the heck is going on here? I was thinking, I can't sit in this seat for 18 hours all the way to Malaysia. I mean, this is gonna kill me. And I thought that was really weird. But of course, It turns out that the train just hadn't been prepared yet. So that thing that was on top of my head, the roof, that was actually the sleeping berth, the upper berth. And eventually they were going to take that berth and lift it up and lock it into position, and then I would have normal headroom. But I'm such a dummy, I didn't realize that. I thought this low ceiling was the way this train was built, like built for hobbits. And I thought, man, this is not going to be comfortable. But after a while, after like sitting down for a while, some more train employees came on, and they had big bags of sheets, like bedding, and they put all the bedding up there. And once all the bedding was up there inside plastic bags, then they lifted it into position, and then I could I could sit up naturally, and I could finally just relax and ease into my train trip. As the train started to move and start clunking along, I was kind of hoping that my seatmate spoke English. I was looking at him and I was trying to figure out where he was from, and he didn't look Thai to me. I couldn't tell you what a Thai person looks like, but his facial features and even his mannerisms, the way he was holding himself and behaving, I don't know, I didn't think he was from Thailand, so I thought, maybe this is an international student and perhaps he speaks English quite well. So I was up for a good chat, and I sounded him out, and he looked a little bit nervous and shook his head. No. He didn't speak English, so I didn't have any hope of talking with him. But it turns out that even if he was fluent in English and a keen conversationalist, it wouldn't have done me any good, because I mean, I don't know exactly what time it was, but I swear it was like, I don't know, 5:45, like 5:30, between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, and they made up all the beds, and everybody pulled the curtains, and everybody went to sleep. I mean, it was like we had all been misbehaving children, and we'd all been sent to bed early without our dinner. I mean, it seemed so weird to me. The sun was still up. It was still bright outside, if I remember right. And anyway, whatever the situation, it was way too early to go to sleep. I was very glad to have a sleeping berth, but I wanted to sit up in my seat until, 10:30, 11, midnight, whatever time it is. Just enjoy being on the train, work on some videos, listen to podcasts, chat with my conversationalist seat partner. But almost before I'd gotten comfortable, they all came down, and I think you had a choice. They were kind of asking you, would you like your seat, your bed made up now or not? And I, on my own, I would have said, no, thank you, not yet. But my seatmate, he very clearly wanted to go to bed, and he hit me with these puppy dog eyes. It's like, please, can we make the beds? And I'm like, okay. When in Rome, right? So I was barely on the train. It felt like for a few minutes, and already I was expected to climb into my berth and go to sleep. But luckily, the seats across from me were unoccupied. Nobody had claimed them, so they were not turned into beds yet because nobody was sitting there. They were still as like normal seats. So I just moved, even though my bed was made and I couldn't sit there anymore, I could move across the aisle and sit in this other seat, and that's what I did. I just sat there until whatever it was, 10:30, 11 o'clock, I can't remember. I'll have to watch the video I shot of that trip, and then I'll be able to see exactly what happened. It feels like it was a long time ago already, and I still haven't found the time to edit that video. I'm working hard and trying to get it done, but I've been so busy here in Penang, I have had very little time to actually edit any of the video that I've been shooting. By the way, I have been eating my dinner as I'm telling this story. Just every time I pause the recording, I eat a little bit, finish chewing, and then I go back to telling my story. I don't want to be chewing as I tell the story. I'm taking pity on you as the poor viewer out there being subjected to another story time. So yeah, I sat up on the train for quite late, and it was amazing. I mean, I just loved it. You know, that rocking motion of the train, the clackety-clack sound of the metal wheels on the metal tracks. There was nothing to see outside because it was dark. You know, there was no views, and there were occasionally people walking up and down the aisle. A lot of people selling things, you know, food, drinks, stuff like that. I'm not a big eater on trains and buses. I have a little bit of a sensitive stomach, I find. And the last thing I want is to be ill and trapped on a plane, train, or bus. So as soon as I start moving, I hesitate eating, which isn't a good thing, because if you don't eat, you get irritable. And actually, when you're traveling, moving to a new place, that's the one time you don't want to be irritable. So I really have to monitor my mood to make sure I'm staying even-keeled. But anyway, I did not eat on this. I just told a lie, because I did buy this little like ham and cheese sandwich at Black Canyon, which I completely forgot that I even bought it. I bought it when I was having my drink. I put it in my knapsack, and at about, did I have it at night or the next morning? I can't remember. But at some point I remembered, ham and cheese sandwich, and I pulled it out of my knapsack, and I had that little sandwich. But I didn't have any of the food that they were selling on the train or anything like that. And then when it was bedtime, you know, I climbed into my berth, got my curtain ready, pulled it in, and it was nice. I didn't realize this. I chose the lower berth specifically because I thought climbing up that little ladder to the upper berth would be pretty awkward. So I paid a little bit extra to have the lower berth, just to ease of getting in and out. It's a little bit more expensive, but it turns out the lower berth is also significantly wider than the upper berth. So that also made it very comfortable in there. I had my knapsack in there. I had my laptop with me, a bunch of camera gear. I was using my GoPro Hero 9 for this whole trip, and I did that deliberately because I wanted a heavy-duty camera that I didn't have to worry about, like banging and dropping and hitting against things. But that was a little bit of a mistake because GoPros fall apart in low light, and I kind of forgot about that. I didn't forget about it, to be honest. I just figured it would be okay. But I've since reviewed a little bit of the footage of me in the dark sleeping compartment talking on the GoPro. It's really bad. So noisy, really terrible image. So I should have packed a slightly better camera for that situation alone. But anyway, all I had was the GoPro. So I'm in the sleeping berth, and I've got the GoPro, and I'm talking to the GoPro, talking about the whole train experience. And eventually, yeah, I just settled in and went to sleep. I got very comfortable in there. I have my own sleeping sheet that I always travel with, a nice big one, nice cotton sheet. And I combined that with the sheet that they gave me. And I had a really nice, comfortable night there. Oddly enough, I was dreading the air conditioning, because most of the time, air conditioning on any kind of a bus or train anywhere in Asia is going to be ice cold. They crank the air conditioning up to the maximum and they leave it there. No matter how cold people get, how many layers of clothing they're putting on, they just make it as cold as they possibly can. And I was expecting that, which is kind of why I packed my sleeping sheet in my knapsack. But they didn't do that on this train. It was air conditioned, but it was air conditioned perfectly for me. It was just at the right temperature to be comfortable. And in fact, you never thought about the temperature. You never thought, oh, it's too warm. I wish the air conditioner was turned up higher, or oh, it's so cold. I wish they turned it down. You never thought about the air conditioning at all. You never thought about the temperature because you were just comfortable the entire time. And that's a very rare experience, I find. So yeah, I had a really good night. I've got earplugs eye shade. I look like a 90-year-old elderly, rich, retired woman. You know, that classic woman you see in movies. Anyone who wears eye shades in movies, they always make them look super ridiculous. But I'm one of those people. I love eye shades. Helps me sleep a lot. So yeah, I went to sleep, slept through the night, had a wonderful night. I can't remember what time I officially woke up in the morning. I'm a very light sleeper. I never sleep through the night. I sleep in chunks. You know, I'll sleep maybe for an hour, wake up, go back to sleep, sleep for an hour and a half, wake up again. So I'll wake up over and over and over again throughout the night. Even if I'm sleeping in a nice bed in a hotel, I wake up all night long. It's a very long, the nights to me feel very long. It's just the kind of nights I have. And that it's even more true on a train, of course, because you're rocking and there's noises, but I still got a lot of rest. But at some point in this sequence of waking up, going back to sleep, waking up, back to sleep, at one point I woke up and I thought, I kind of feel like the day is starting now, and I checked my watch and I don't remember what time it was. Could have been 4:30, could have been 5, could have been 5:30, 6, I don't remember now. I tend to wake up pretty early. I like to get a jump on the day. So I like to have a cup of coffee, spend an hour or two on my laptop, like writing in my journal before the day begins, you know, kind of get my bearings. And here on the train, I did that. I just stayed in my sleeping berth. You know, I got dressed, did all the things you do when you get up in the morning, pulled the curtain aside, leaned against it was quite comfortable in there, leaned against the wall. Though again, super dummy, because there was one really awkward thing in this berth, that there was this big headrest or something sticking out from the wall that kind of pushed my head forward. I couldn't lean against the wall because of this headrest that was stuck against the wall. So what I did was I got all of my bags and rolled them up, and my sleeping sheet and extra pillows and blankets, and I tried to pack everything behind me to create kind of a brace for my lower back so I could hit that with my back, and then the headrest wouldn't be hitting me so badly forward, so I could kind of get comfortable. This was quite a project. It didn't rival, you know, the building of the pyramids in Egypt or anything, but it took some engineering to build this back brace to kind of get comfortable in there. And then hours later, when I'm getting organized to leave the train, I kind of examined my surroundings more, and it turns out that entire back brace was on a hinge. And had I known that, I could have undone the hooks and the whole thing would have lowered and lay flat against the wall. But nobody told me that, and I had no idea. So something to note for the future. Anyway, so I'm in there, I'm comfortable, I got my backrest, I got my laptop on my thighs, and then, miracle of miracles, this train, or somebody, whether he worked for the train company or not, I don't know, this man goes walking down the aisle, and he's got, you know, cups and things in his hand, and he's saying, coffee, coffee, anybody want coffee? I think he was saying it in Thai, but at some point he may have used the English word coffee, because my ears just like radar, like whoop, you know, whoop, 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 you know, coffee. I heard someone say coffee, and I'm like, zero in on this guy, and coffee? He says, yes, sir. So it's yes, one coffee. And this is kind of funny. I didn't mention this, but in the evening, the night before, eventually we stopped in, I forget the name of the town, it'll come to me, a big city in Thailand, you know, down to the south. And another foreigner got on, a backpacker, and he took the sleeping berth opposite me. And then he went straight to sleep, you know, pulled the curtains. He was really tired. And the reason he was really tired is because he was supposed to get his train at like 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 at his train station. So he had been awake the whole night, gone to the train station, was out on the platform, you know, starting at like 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30, and then his train never came because it was my train and it was running 3 hours behind schedule. So I waited an hour and a half on the platform during the daytime. This poor guy was waiting 3 hours at night. So he was basically standing on the platform in the dark, not knowing what was going on, you know, for 3 hours. When the train finally showed up, he was exhausted. He went straight to sleep. But when I'm in my berth and I say, you know, coffee, yes, 1 coffee, I hear this rustling over there and his curtain pops open and his head comes out. He's going, coffee, coffee, yeah, 1, me too, you know. So if you order coffee loud enough, everyone around you hears you order coffee and the coffee orders just start coming in from all directions. And my fellow backpacker, he needed his morning coffee even more than I did. But I sat there for a deliciously long time, just typing away on my computer, and I got coffee after coffee after coffee. Every time this guy went by, I was just like, yeah, I'll have 1 more. Because there were those tiny little cups, you know, it's not a big coffee, just a small cup. And I just got one every time he went by. But it was like one of the best mornings of my life, seriously. One interesting thing about this train is that they never converted the beds back into seats. And it felt kind of weird, actually, but that's because this train was scheduled to arrive at about 10 to 10 in the morning. So it's a night train, arrives early in the morning, so there's no point turning the beds back into chairs. That's just a waste of time, you know, it's a lot of work for nothing. But by the time we got to the border with Malaysia, we were running so far behind schedule, and then you cross into Malaysia, the time jumps ahead by 1 hour. So I think technically the train arrived at our destination at something like 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon, and yet all the beds were still there. So in fact, the entire morning from like whatever it was, 5 a.m. when I woke up and sat up in bed until 1 p.m. when we arrived, that whole time I was still just sitting in my bed. And again, I was fine with it because I was actually quite comfortable by the time I built my backrest and got everything comfortable, you know, got everything organized. But a lot of the other people, they were still in bed. You know, the curtains were drawn and they just stayed inside their berth with the curtains drawn until we arrived at like 1 o'clock or something like that. And the the backpacker opposite me, I think I found out eventually he was from Germany, so he's a German backpacker. He was still sound asleep when we arrived, and they had to come and shake him awake and tell him, you know, we've arrived, time to get up and get off the train. And how and where this train arrived and what happened next was a bit of a mystery to me. I've been trying to figure this out in advance, but I couldn't get a solid answer that I trusted. So it's quite interesting for me to see what actually happens in real life. You know, the options ranged from the train stopping at the train station in Thailand, and then you get off the train, walk across the physical border, go through immigration and customs at the border, and then continue on from there. So that's one option. The other one would be that the train goes right across the border and stops in Malaysia. And then you don't have to walk, you know, you don't have to walk as far. And it turns out that option B is actually what happened. And it was so nice. Well, it was nice and it was not nice in the same way. I'll explain why. But essentially, the train physically crossed the border, stopped at a train station, and the train station technically and physically was in Malaysia. But the train station building, half of it still belonged to Thailand. So the train would stop here, all the passengers get off, and the platform we were standing on was part of Thailand. And then you go through immigration and customs, go through a little hallway, and now you're in the same building, same train station, but now you're in Malaysia. And then you go through Malaysian customs and immigration, and on the other side, you're in the same train station, getting back on a train, but now you're suddenly in Malaysia. Does that all make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. Once you do it, it's all pretty easy. But there were quite a few wrinkles. Wrinkle number one, there was nowhere to change money. It didn't bother me because I actually had a stack of Malaysian ringgit left over from my previous trip. You know, I hadn't changed all my money back. So I had Malaysian ringgit myself, but all of the other people on the train, all the foreigners, they didn't have any local currency. And they needed at least a few ringgit to buy a ticket for the train to take them to Kuala Lumpur or to Butterworth or to wherever they're going. And I didn't see any money changing booths anywhere. There was certainly no banks there. And none of the other foreigners found one either. So I'm pretty confident that there just wasn't one. You know, it just didn't exist. So we had this situation where we got a lineup at this ticket window where you buy your tickets for the KTM train in Malaysia, but every foreigner standing in line would get up to the window and the same story over and over again. I don't have any money. Like, what can I do? So all these foreigners were running around, you know, borrowing money from other foreigners. A lot of Malaysians were helping them out because they would see the poor foreigners struggling and they would go up to them and say, oh, what do you need? And they'd buy a ticket for them, or they change Thai baht for Malaysian ringgit for them, or the German backpacker actually, he was helped out by some Malaysians who used some kind of a debit card, and they used their debit card to buy his ticket from a machine and then gave him the ticket, and he paid them in Thai baht that he still had for the ticket. You know, so we all had to do these weird schemes in order to get enough money to buy a train ticket. So once you got through all of that, you know, everything was fine. I mean, I was hoping to also maybe buy a SIM card, but the train connection was really tight, and this caught some other foreigners by surprise. They didn't know about the time change, so they were thinking the train arrives at this time, the train to Kuala Lumpur is at this time, and they had enough time to make the connection. But of course, they didn't realize that as soon as they crossed the border, now we're on Malaysian time, and it jumps by 1 hour, and they all missed their train, the one they were planning to take. But to me, it didn't matter. I had no schedule to stick to, and the train to Butterworth Station near Penang, it left pretty much every hour. So even if I'd missed one, I could take the next one. But there was a really convenient train coming in just like 15 minutes or something after my arrival. So I did see like a SIM card booth. I probably could have gotten a SIM card, but I just didn't want to bother with it. So I just went straight onto the train platform, and I didn't get a SIM card. I finished my dinner, leaving from Yummy Cottage, and I'm just going to go for a short walk around this neighborhood. My Airbnb is across the other side of McAllister Road, which is that really busy road there. But there's like a residential area over here on this side, and I've never come down this way before. Oh, that should be interesting. See what's off in this direction. You never quite know what you're going to find. Yeah, I gotten to the point where my train arrived at the border between Thailand and Malaysia. And one funny thing about that whole experience is that I'd sort of been thinking about this moment for a long time as it relates to COVID, of course, because I knew I was coming to Malaysia eventually. And when the border opened up and there were a lot of restrictions in place, there was all this talk about you have to be vaccinated, you have to have 2 doses, now you have to have 3 doses, you have to have this certificate, you have to have the booklet, you have to download the app, you have to register, all these things. And while I was in Mae Sot in Thailand, I did all those things. I got vaccinated, triple vaxxed. I got the international vaccine certificate. I downloaded all the apps. I input all my information. I was so ready to cross a border in the COVID era. Like, no one has been more prepared than I have been. And I had everything ready too when I got off the train and I was going towards immigration. I had my international vaccine booklet in my hand along with my passport, and I had all the apps loaded up on my phone in advance. I had my paper certificate, my vaccine certificate, in with my passport pouch, and I was ready to prove to everyone that I was safe to enter their country as far as COVID was concerned. And nobody even brought up the subject. Nothing. Nobody asked about my vaccination status. Nobody asked to see a certificate, my booklet. Nobody asked to see the app. I didn't have to scan a QR code. I didn't have to read, like, nothing. It was just a question of, was my visa for Thailand still valid? And I wonder if I went in the wrong direction. This road looks busier than I was hoping. I think I'll just turn around, and this way looks quieter. Maybe I can find some quieter streets. Yeah, all they needed to know, they checked my passport, and on the Thailand side, they did ask me a couple of questions. I had to get all my fingerprints taken, not 1, 2, not an index finger and a thumb, all 5 from both hands. That was a pretty involved process, but painless. And there was one point when, even before I'd reached the immigration, the official counters, there were a group of men standing there kind of doing a pre-screening, and they were looking for people who set off any red flags that they may want to question further and see whether they want to give them a visa to enter Malaysia. And I heard a couple of stories of foreigners who ran into some issues crossing into Malaysia, and I was wondering whether I would get caught up in this sweep myself. But I think what happened to these other foreigners is that there was something weird about their situation. There was always something that set off a red flag, and as far as I can tell, there was nothing about my situation that would do that. But these men doing the screening did ask me quite a few questions about how long had I been in Thailand, where was I before that. And I don't know if I'm skilled at this or not, but I've had a little bit of experience. And one thing I do, I have a habit of not giving my interrogators more information than they're asking for. I don't give them details that they can sink their teeth into. I tell them what they ask me, I answer their question, but then I don't go babbling on and offer more and more details, because when you do that, it kind of gives them something to latch onto and ask follow-up questions. So even I will do this to the extent of even being a little bit vague, you know, because they asked me, how long were you in Thailand? And rather than tell them exactly how long, you know, because it's been years, you know, I was there during the COVID era, you know, 2.5 years. I didn't say that. I just kind of laughed and smiled and said something about, yes, because of COVID and the borders were closed. So I was there for a long time. And I left it at that. I let them laugh along with me. Yes, COVID, oh, we were all stuck places. We were there for a long time. And then I just shut up. I didn't give them any more details than that. And then they just kind of looked at me, and they looked at the long lineup of people behind me, and they're trying to make a decision. Okay, do we let this guy go or what? And then because I wasn't really, you know, giving them anything to think about, they just says, okay. Then they gave me my passport and off I went. And then stamp, stamp, stamp. Getting into Malaysia was relatively straightforward, and I was given a 90-day social visit pass, which I'd gotten in the past as well, standard for Canadians. And then, but there was one other thing. There was they put a green sticker. It looks like it's something that stays in your passport until you leave the country, and then they peel it away or do something with it. It's a peel away sticker. But I don't know what that sticker is for. I really don't. But that was the only thing that was new about coming into Malaysia this time. Interesting spot here on the corner. I don't know if, yeah, there it is right there. Kind of a scooter place selling Vespas. And there's a Justin Bieber Vespa being advertised in the window there. So come to Malaysia, get yourself a stylized Justin Bieber Vespa. What do they call fans of Justin Bieber? Like Bieber, the Bieber something? He's a Bieber? I can't remember what it is. But anyway, so I was in Malaysia officially. I had my 90-day social visit pass stamped in my passport, and my KTM train showed up shortly thereafter. And earlier I had noticed some people on the train platform way back in Bangkok who were shooting video on the train platform, and they just had that look about them, that YouTuber look, you know. We all look, we have a certain look, don't we? And it looked like they were shooting videos for YouTube, and I wanted to talk to them back then, but the situation wasn't quite right. But I finally got to chat with them when I was on the KTM train from the border to Butterworth, and their YouTube channel is called 2 Feet 1 Camera. They're a traveling couple, a woman from the Philippines, Kisa, and a man from Japan. His name is Nisha, and Nisha operates the camera for the most part. He speaks, but he doesn't show up on the video, but he films Nisha. No, he films Kisa as they go about their travel adventures. So I chatted with them for a while. I could have talked to them for hours about technical things to do with YouTube, camera gear, microphones, editing programs, all that kind of stuff. I never get to talk to YouTubers about this sort of stuff. But anyway, they were there, and the German backpacker, he was also on my train, my KTM train going to Butterworth. Which way to go? This way. Oop. The second I say this way, of course, I walk right out into traffic. It's what I do. So I'm on the KTM train heading to Butterworth. A few adventures there, in that in the old days you got off the train or the bus and then you followed all the signs that said ferry to Georgetown, and it would take you to this giant vehicle ferry. You know, it's a huge boat designed to take cars and trucks, but it would also take pedestrians. Wonderful boat. It's one of the best things about going to Penang was taking that boat back and forth. It cost like 1 ringgit to get on this thing, and you could just walk around this giant vehicle ferry, look at all the beautiful scenery, the water, the other boats, and yeah, it's open air. But apparently that whole system is gone. It's not open to pedestrians anymore. I don't even know if the vehicle ferry runs anymore. Maybe it doesn't even run. But anyway, I followed all the signs saying ferry this way, now go through this tunnel, now up this stairway, down this stairway, through this tunnel. And you end up in this fairly large shopping plaza, which is sort of like a bus station and transportation hub. And then you got to find more signs, ferry, 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 this way, this way, this way. And you follow all the signs and you eventually get to a different type of ferry. And this one is more like a modern passenger ferry. It's like being inside a jet, really. You know, the seating looks like you're on an airplane, and it's enclosed, like all the windows are sealed. You're basically inside a bubble. I hate it, to be honest. I really miss that vehicle ferry. That was such a joy to ride on. But hey, it's a very, very short trip. You're just going across the strait, I don't know, 5 minutes at the most, and then you're docking in Georgetown. So I got to Georgetown, and for this trip, for the first time, I think, first time in my life, I booked an Airbnb. I don't think I've ever used it before. I have the app, but I'd never actually booked a room before. So I booked this place, and it's a bit farther away. I booked it because it was relatively inexpensive for a single room, but the location I thought maybe, you know, might not be perfectly ideal because it was like 3 kilometers away from where the ferry docked, and a normal person would have taken a taxi, especially with all my heavy luggage. But I'm not very smart. and I put on my heavy bag, pretending to the world in general that it's not heavy. You know, I tried to carry myself as if it like weighs less than a feather. I don't want to give away my secret that I can barely move. This thing is so heavy. It's too embarrassing. But I walk all the way to the Airbnb, and it was a little bit challenging to find. I guess Airbnb, you know, it's not like a hotel. You don't look for a giant building that says hotel on it. It can be any building around you. You know, it can be like a private home, and it doesn't have any signs, and you have to get there with all the information and pictures that the Airbnb operator provides, you know, on the website. So I get there, took a while, finally got there, struggled a little bit going inside because they sent me the wrong door code. They sent me a 3-digit code and said, this is the code to punch in to get through the door, and wouldn't work. I sat there punching it in, punching it in, punching it in, and the door would not open. And then I had a bit of a brainstorm, and I put a 0 in front of the 3 digits. So I was like 0, 3 digits, and then the door opened. So they pretty much gave me the wrong door code, but I figured it out, and I got inside, got into my little room, tiny, tiny room, but I'm quite happy there. And since then, I've had a really good time. I met up with some, well, one subscriber in particular, someone I've been in contact with for quite a while, who watches some of my videos on YouTube. Yeah, really nice guy. We've been chatting a lot online, but I never had a chance to meet him in real life. And yeah, lives here in Penang. So I got together with him and his friends for dinner one night. They treated me to a really, really nice dinner. And then for drinks afterward. That was great. And since then, yeah, I've been going out on small adventures here in Penang for the last 2 weeks. I've done so much. I've shot so much video, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to edit it all. So yeah, I don't exactly have the most efficient workflow, as it turns out. And of course I can talk about that for a long time, all my issues with video editing and things like that. I never make things easy on myself, put it that way. So I've been in Penang, as I said, for 2 weeks now, and just before I started shooting this video, I booked my room for another week because I'm not done with Penang yet. I'm really not. I could stay here for months, you know, with my usual style. You know, I have no problem entertaining myself anywhere I am. So I'm going to be here 3 weeks in total, 1 more week, and then I'll be getting on a bus or a train to Kuala Lumpur. And yeah, that is it for story time over dinner, just to talk about my train ride from Bangkok all the way to Georgetown on the island of Penang. As always, I hope you enjoyed that to an extent. And if you enjoyed it and you like Storytime videos, come back here on this channel, wherever this video ends up being, and look for the next one. And I hope to see you then for the next Storytime. See you.